So hi, my name is Rebecca Lisi, and I am a city councilor at large. And just earlier today, I announced my candidacy for mayor of the city of Holyoke. And I think the first question that is on people's minds is, why would I want to do that job? Clearly, there's a lot of work that we need to do in Holyoke, and there's going to be a lot of headaches involved with the job. But at this moment in time, I really feel that my experience has prepared me for this position, and I really feel like, the decision is making me as opposed to me making the decision. And it is going to be hard, and it is going to be challenging. But again, I do feel that my experiences have prepared me. The relationships that I have in the community, I think, are at a point where I don't need to feel like I'm going to do this alone. When I first arrived in Holyoke in 2004, I actually, moved into the house that we bought in 2003. And, I was really, by myself at that point in time. It was just me and Damien sort of starting a life together, fixing up this house, working on the yard. But campaign after campaign, I've just been on the streets, knocking on doors, working on the issues, and meeting people, listening to folks, understanding what their needs and stories are. And that's how I've learned about the city. And I think that it's that ability to listen to the people of this city from an impartial, if you will, outsider perspective that allows me to, very fairly and in an unbiased way begin to make the connections and understand, oh, like this area or this neighborhood is going through this and it's similar to this, or these people are dealing with the same problem. It's not just something that they did. It's really systemic. It's an issue that more than one person is dealing with, which means then it's a political issue, and we have to address it with policy.
You mentioned the experience of reaching out to people and interacting with people, listening to them, and this is something that it will be part of what it will add to the skills and the experience needed in order to exercise your role as a mayor should be elected. What else do you bring as part of your experience and background that do you think it will be a perfect fit for it?
Right. So my background is in political organizing. So that's where I learned, the door-to-door canvassing skills of talking with neighbors about the issues, really being able to listen and build what we used to call strength in numbers. And the more people that are thinking and talking about the issue, the more you're able to sort of make changes on that item in a formal governmental process. So I think my sort of political life starts there. And then also, I learned very early on about like the legislative process. I have 14 years on the city council, so that's 14 years of local municipal, lawmaking. I understand the ordinances and where, in my opinion, they may be a little bit sticky and preventing businesses from, getting up and going as quickly as we'd like them to see. Um, uh, Additionally, in terms of skills, I really feel like, I'm a doctoral candidate at UMass Amherst in political science. And so, not that I think that, the doctoral degree helps me with politics per se, but I have an ability to look at facts and information, data, and be able to, with a very analytical mind, sort of assess the situation, weigh the different pieces of evidence, and be able to, what I think I've been able to do in the city council with that sort of analytical skill set is chart a path forward that really takes as many needs into account, finds compromises where we can, and begins to mediate the different interests that are in our city. And it's not in a sort of attached or emotional way, although I would never say that I'm not passionate about the issues that I take on, but I do feel that I have the ability to listen to all sides, multiple perspectives of an issue, and then figure out a way to move forward with a degree of, impartiality.
During your announcement made officially at the Holyoke Public Library, the outside, due to COVID, we cannot be indoors still, but you brought up several goals and achievements that you foresee as what you want to do as a mayor. So
Mhm.
could you give us a little bit of that detail of what are your goals?
Okay. So first of all, I think, again, I want to emphasize that listening is so important, because if we want government to be perceived as an avenue to make legitimate change in this country and in our community, then the government needs to really represent people, and not only have representatives that are making decisions that they claim represent people, but really that the citizens are really feeling like they participated in some way, that their experiences and concerns were heard. And then once the government sort of rolls out some sort of policy or initiative, there's a higher degree of receptivity, because people feel a sense of like ownership and they understand it. And so that's a really important piece for me. So I mentioned that my door in the mayor's office would always be open. I literally mean that it will always be open, where I would have office hours where people could just come in off the street and talk to me about their issues without necessarily having an appointment. From there, neighborhood associations are a key part of my platform. I really think that there are some divisions in this community that have been left unattended over the past couple of years, and they're just sort of becoming deeper as we don't pay attention or address them. And I understand that some of the divisions sort of relate back to, um, I think, this sense of, you think this about me, I think this about you, and there's no opportunity for people that are living in Holyoke to understand that, quote unquote, the other side is not out to get them, that really we all want to like see a lot of the same goals and achievements for the city, but there's no space, like literally physical space, for that dialogue to happen. Oftentimes when residents, citizens come into City Hall to talk about issues, there's a power dynamic there. There's a hierarchy of power. It's formal politics. So I think the neighborhood associations kind of just take the edge off. And so many people have moved to the city that the city is really changing in fundamental ways. And we need to connect the folks that have been here for a long time with the folks that are just moving in. How are we going to carry on the stories and traditions of our historic past if they literally die with the folks that are holding those stories at this moment? We need to share those stories and share those perspectives, and vice versa. Like the new folks coming here need to share why they're here and what they want to do here. And I think we could get through the neighborhood associations, neighbors working together, identifying issues, and then additionally, just seeing that they do share a lot of common interests and goals. And I think that sets the foundation for what I'd like to do as mayor. From, if I may, or
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
from there, economic development has always been a key part of all my campaigns. I do feel that in my first campaign for the Ward 7 seat in 2005, I really put the idea of downtown revitalization on the map for folks. People were not talking about this as broadly as they are today. There were definitely some individuals. I remember John Aubin in particular was someone who was very helpful in sort of creating this conception of a livable, walkable downtown where we do infill development, as opposed to, I think many people, when I was talking to folks at the door in 2005, had a vision of just flattening out the whole downtown and rebuilding new things, and that's just not. It doesn't respect, I think, the city's history. I don't think it respects the communities that have been down there. I really believe in revitalization as opposed to gentrification. And I know that some people have a hard time understanding what that could be, or how it's possible, or that perhaps, revitalization is just a euphemism for gentrification. But if we don't really, think that there is such a thing as revitalization, then we won't get revitalization. But if we believe that revitalization is something that we can do and create, then we can have conversations about different projects that are coming in and how they may affect different neighborhoods and groups in the city. But again, that relies on having a robust civic infrastructure. I think that municipal fiber internet is going to be another key part of our economic development in the future. It also ties into economic development in a post-COVID world and COVID recovery. We're doing more and more things from our homes, whether it's school. We're working from home, doing school from home. We're doing medical appointments from home, even ordering groceries or takeout from the comfort of our homes. And that all relies on stable and reliable internet access. So it's no longer a luxury. It is absolutely a utility, and it's a matter of equity. So we need to make sure that as we're doing more things online, that we are ensuring that all segments of our community have access to that utility. And then finally, I would say, there's a few things in there that are a bit more technical when it comes to like the city's finances. I don't, expect, regular folks in the community who are just, doing their jobs and like half plugged into city politics to follow the like machinations of, the city's finances, but they are an important part of the puzzle. So when people are complaining about, lack of community policing, or that trash and recycling isn't picked up efficiently, that all relies back to the city's budget. And so I would like to hire someone to go after grants, so that we're bringing more money into the city and we could do more with our budget. But then we also have to be careful that we're not getting dinged. So right now we're in a situation where a lot of the grants that we're bringing in are not closed out at the end of the fiscal year. And what's been happening is that we're losing some of our free cash because of these open accounts. They're not settled. So, that's going to count against us. I also think that, we're starting to run into a lot of equipment setbacks. So like the DPW vehicle fleet, is in pretty bad condition. We need to start thinking about investments. And I think that's a signal that, our stabilization fund, that's our emergency rainy day fund, that's in really good shape. It's just earning interest on its own. I think we could really start, looking into investing any sort of like surplus funds that we have in the creation of a capital stabilization account, so that we could set aside money and start thinking about how to predictably and in a timely manner start to replace our vehicle fleets, replace equipment, and continue the level of services that our residents enjoy.
Definitely points that are really important and current about the many situations that the city of Holyoke is having. And of course, we will have all this year to go through the campaign so we can revisit the more specific details about the plan and the campaign as we continue moving throughout 2021. One aspect that got my attention from your announcement today is that you brought up something that sounds like a really, really important and hard challenge, which is building this bridge between the old and the new Holyoke. What can you tell us about that plan?
Well, to me, that's the neighborhood association piece. It's really, there's people that have been in the city for generations, and they love the city, and they, as I mentioned earlier, they carry all the traditions and history of the city. But our city is also, the first planned industrial city. it's known for innovation. It's known for sort of like taking big ideas and some risks along the way. And so, I think that the neighborhood associations are a way to bring the folks that have been here for generations um, into conversation and into action, really, with the newer folks that are moving into their neighborhood, and start to build a familiarity, build a comfortability with, who's out there, who's coming into our city. And then, similarly, old and new could also be interpreted as past and present. So, if we have this historic building stock, and we have this, at the same time, legacy of innovation. My announcement was at the Holyoke Public Library today because it's the perfect example of the past meeting the present, even the future, right? It's the perfect connection between old and new, public and private. All of those aspects of our community work together to create this wonderful resource. And it's beautiful. It's not only, utilitarian, like, the People's College, the People's University. It's really a beautiful piece of art, and it is beautiful both on the 1902 facade side as well as the what was it, 2013 update. So it's a really, it's really a testament to what can be done if we start thinking about how to marry all these pieces and bring them together.
And it's like I mentioned, something that sounds like a really complex challenge. But I'm glad to hear that you are willing to take on that, because maybe just to mention Old Holyoke and New Holyoke, I know it is uncomfortable for some, and at the same time too real. But maybe it may not be that hard once we are all clear that we are looking to the same angle of the future and prosperity. So I appreciate that you are bringing this point.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in this sort of, COVID situation where having large events is difficult. But I do have close contacts with folks that have been trained to hold large mediated conversations and gatherings, with an agenda to have a community conversation. So I think that one of the things that I'd like to do is, when I first come in as mayor, I'd like to host, as much as it would be a listening tour for me to like go into each neighborhood and hear people talk about, what's going on. I think it also serves an opportunity to have these community conversations and sort of just get neighbors at the same table with one another. It's a lot of, some of that happened with Crush, which was Citizens for the Revitalization of Urban Success in Holyoke, back in 2008 up to about 2011. And it really, I mean, we had weekly, it was monthly parties with a purpose. And we'd have a panel of speakers talk about some issue that was happening in Holyoke. The library renovation was one of the issues. Gentrification was one of the issues that we had a conversation about. A lot of different topics. We even, sponsored an economic development forum to hear what other gateway communities and similar cities in New England were doing in terms of economic development. And, we really had a moment in those few years where there was a renewed sense of excitement for the city. And people were just, it was a network of volunteers. It was creating a civic infrastructure where people could find other like-minded individuals who wanted to, put lights on the canal or create a dog park. Or there were a whole bunch of folks that worked together on creating a winter carnival, just a series of events in the middle of winter so that, again, neighbors could come out, connect with one another. Yeah, so it is difficult, but sort of like the mechanics of it are not. It's just sort of creating the space for us to perhaps reintroduce ourselves to one another.
I want to thank you, Rebecca Lisi, for taking this time and allowing this conversation to happen. How can people get to know more about your campaign, and if interested, getting involved with it?
Sure. So that's easy. I have a political website. It's votelisi.com. Or you can find me on facebook.com/votelisi. There's lots of ways to get involved in the campaign if you're interested. Also, I've been a city councilor for 14 years, so the blog on my website will document a lot of the different issues and stances and education and outreach that I've done over the years in the city. So it's all there. It's for people to take up and consume. And these are not easy questions that you asked here today, but they are very important. So I hope that in my sort of muddling through answers and trying to find a way that is imperfectly answering the questions that you asked, I can sort of show other folks that it's okay sort of not to know the answer, and you're sort of not expected to know the answer. That we just need to figure out ways of beginning the conversation and taking it from there. So yeah, I do hope that uh, giving the giving the answers that I did, I recognize that they are not they're probably not satisfying to a lot of people, and all I could say is that that becomes a point of the next conversation.
Absolutely. If anything, I think this is the first step on a series of conversation that could be part of that engagement with the voters, to get to know more about who are the candidates, what the candidates stand for, particularly in this points, and through those dialogues to find the answers together. I think that will be the most important thing, because at the end, it's going to be part of the work once the voters decide who's going to be the next mayor of Holyoke, knowing that there is already some work put on a path
Yeah.
towards some specific goals, additionally to the ones that you already shared with us today.
Right. Thank you so much for recognizing that. Thanks.
Well, this is Rebecca Lisi, currently city councilor at large in the city of Holyoke. And today being the first day that the city clerk announced that the papers are available for being pulled for whoever wants to run for office. The announcement has been made today by Rebecca Lisi, and we will be presenting the conversations with all candidates for the different positions available throughout this 2021, which is a year of election in Holyoke for pretty much all the different positions available. So thank you, Rebecca
Thanks for
Lisi, for
having me, Johan. Thanks so much.